A lot of the cameras now aren't coming with battery chargers. This means you're either supposed to charge the battery in the camera or buy a dedicated battery charger. And using your expensive camera as a battery charger and exposing it to those heat cycles doesn't really make sense. And this can potentially decrease the lifespan of your camera. But battery chargers from many of the first party brands can cost a small fortune. It's not uncommon for one of these chargers to cost $100 or more. And this is where the new line of Llano battery chargers comes in, because for less than the price of the first party manufacturer's battery charger, you can get a better battery charger and 2 batteries. Or you can get their PowerBank battery charger all in one, which has a built-in battery and it can charge 2 batteries at once, but it can also power other USB powered devices like a phone or a tablet. Llano did send these out to me at no cost to myself, and this is a sponsored video, but you are going to hear my honest opinion, and there are 2 potential drawbacks I see to these systems, and I will clearly identify those as we go through the video. And in addition to my overwhelmingly positive experience with these battery chargers, there are 1,000+ Amazon reviews with an average of 4.5 out of 5 stars. So these are very, very popular chargers, and they're very well reviewed by the general public as well. Now, the chargers are available for most of the popular brands: Sony, Fuji, Canon, Nikon, and Lumix cameras I know of. Even GoPros, you can get them. And the prices do vary based on what brand camera and what battery model that you've got. So I'll put links to all the specific brands and specific batteries in the description down below. So you should be able to go down there and just see what battery model you have or what camera model you have. And I should have the right link for you there. Just looking at the 2 options you've got for the battery chargers, you've got one which is just a straight standard battery charger. It can charge 2 batteries at once. And then you've got a second one that can charge 2 batteries, but it also has an built power bank, which can charge those batteries similar to like an AirPod case for AirPods. When you put them in, it charges them. This works in a very, very similar way. Now, you can get both of these with or without batteries, and I will talk about the batteries and my experience with the quality of the batteries a little bit later in the video. And first, I want to cover some features that they have in common, because these aren't just cheap battery chargers. They have a number of features that make them very premium chargers. And the first thing is they do a smart charge. That means that they start very quickly when the battery is depleted or very low. And as they get to the point where they're going to top off the battery above 80 and 90%, they slow that charge rate down. This is something that the chargers do, or the good smart chargers do, which just extends your battery life. Beyond that, each of these units include temperature control, over voltage protection, short circuit protection, overcharge protection, and surge protection. So you've got all kinds of features in these units that you would not expect to see in more affordable chargers. You're also going to be able to do fast charges with these. So if you have the right power adapter, 18 watts or more, you're going to be able to charge twice as fast as most factory or standard OEM from the manufacturer's chargers. And that is going to charge 2 batteries in around 2.5 hours, where typically a single battery with one of the first party manufacturers is going to be 1.5 to 2 hours to charge a single battery. I've also tested these with the original manufacturer's batteries, as well as 2 other brands of third-party batteries, and they were able to charge all of them, had no problem, and it brought them up to full charge. And these aren't just chargers, both of them are also carrying cases for the batteries. So you're going to be able to fit 2 batteries in each of them, so you don't have to have a separate place to store your batteries. You can just store your batteries in the charger. You're also going to find that they both have LCD displays, and when you push the little button on the front, the individual charger unit doesn't have the battery bank. It's going to show you the charge on the batteries. This one says 100% on the one, and there's no battery in the other. And then on this unit, the battery bank one, you're going to see it has the charge percentage of the actual unit itself. This is the battery bank is currently at 99%. And then that little bar on the side, that is showing you how much charge the individual battery has. Once again, there's only one battery in this, and then if the other one was going, you'd have the other battery there. They also both include these little carrying cases that come with them, and they both include a USB-C cable for charging, so you can throw that all in your bag together. Now, one thing that they don't come with is they don't come with the actual USB power adapter to charge them. You need an 18 watt or higher adapter to be able to max out the speed of both of these. And the one thing that they do have in common, which I see is a potential disadvantage, and the first potential disadvantage, is the size, because they do end up being slightly larger than a comparable setup when you've got a couple of batteries and a battery charger. And I'll just give you an example of that. We'll start out with a Canon battery. So here is the battery charger, and then here is a Canon charger with a single battery. Now keep in mind there is a second battery not here, which would make the total volume a little bit bigger, but you can see this unit is a little bit bigger even when we're thinking about storing a second battery. Another one we could compare is the Fuji batteries. Now this charges 2, and as you can see, that is a fair bit better. Now these batteries will just fall out. You wouldn't really be able to carry them around in your bag like that, where this will actually store the batteries. But once again, we've got a slightly larger volume there. And then when we look at the Sony charger, actually, this Sony charger is not that small, and we're getting to the point where, although it is smaller, when you take that into account and the battery, we're getting very, very close, but I would say that the Sony setup is still a little bit smaller. So you do have a smaller volume there. And then when we compare it to the one with the battery bank, obviously the one with the battery bank is a fair bit bigger, but then we have to account that this has got a 12,400 watt battery bank in it as well. So I wanted to point that out because I think that is probably one of the single disadvantages of these units, is they will potentially take up a little bit more space in your bag. And while the battery bank and charger in one is a little bit bigger, you do have a lot more functionality with that. And the first thing is you actually have 2 USB-C ports on the side of it. They are switchable and they are auto in and out. Now they seem to only do one at a time. So if you are actually charging the unit with one, when I plugged into a device into the outgoing, that didn't do anything. But what I was able to do is when this had full charge, I was able to charge 2 batteries in here, and I was able to charge my tablet and my phone at the same time. So this is going to charge your batteries and all your devices. I was also able to run my camera off this. I had a camera battery in, and then I ran it as a power bank into the camera. It was able to operate the camera, and I was able to actually power my MacBook Air while using it. Now, while using it, it didn't really increase the battery. It kind of just held it steady. So you can either like power it like that, or you can just set it aside when you're not using it and it will charge it up. The other thing this does for you, it effectively gives you 3 cycles of battery. So if you go out with this fully charged, you've had it plugged in overnight, and at that point, the batteries are charged in the unit and the unit itself is charged, because when it's plugged in, it's not only charging the 2 batteries, it's also charging itself. It does all of that at once. But when you go out the door, you will have the full charge on these that you can use, and then you will have 2 extra cycles once you put them in the case. So you essentially have 6 total cycles of battery. And for the average camera system out there, that's going to get you 9 hours of video recording, or conservatively 3,600 photos, but could actually be up to 6,000 photos or more. So for most people, that is beyond what you're ever going to use. And I think for a lot of people, you could just take this in your camera and you're set as far as batteries. You wouldn't even have to plug this in again. So for a lot of people, this is going to last an entire trip. I just want to quickly talk about the batteries, because I know a lot of people are afraid of third-party batteries. I've never really had a problem with third-party batteries, and I use third-party batteries all the time. I think we're long past those days, early days, where you had swelling issues and batteries, blowing up. As long as you're getting a well-known, reputable brand, I don't think you're going to have a problem. The first thing to talk about battery life, I found no real-world difference using these and comparing them to the Sony batteries and the Nikon batteries, which were the 2 systems that I've got here and I was shooting with. Now, I did see a video by Dustin Abbott where he actually did some quite sort of laboratory sort of tests, and in his determination, he thought that the Lano batteries as third-party batteries had about 5% less battery life than the OEM Sony batteries. I think he compared them to. The other thing I would say is one concern people have is compatibility with different cameras. Now, I've got on the Sony and the Nikon, I have the Z6 III and I have the ZF. They work on both of those cameras fine. And on the Sony, I've got the FX30, A6700, A7 IV, and A7R5. And it works on all of those. I get no compatibility issues and I get no warnings. Now, this is the only possible disadvantage I see to third-party batteries like this, and I don't know that this necessarily will happen, but what has happened to me in past with other manufacturers' batteries is that when a new model camera comes out and I try to use one of these older model batteries, I put it in and it recognizes that it is not an OEM battery. Now, I don't know if that will happen with these. I don't even know why that happens. But generally what I found is if I buy the batteries now, any of the cameras that are currently on the market, it will continue to work for. So I've never had them just stop working. So particularly for those people who just bought a camera and they have no battery charging solution, I don't recommend charging the batteries in the camera. I think it turns your camera into a very expensive battery charger. I think either of these options are far better. I find them to perform just as well as the OEM offerings because I do have a number of the OEM offerings. And really, it's going to be a fraction of the price, and it has additional functionality. I've been using these for the past couple of months. I've traveled to the US with them. I traveled to Canada, and now I'm back in Australia. I've had them in my bags and the planes. I've had no issues, and I particularly found that extra functionality of having that battery charger with me all the time, or that battery bank, was super, super useful. I'll put those links in the description down below so you can identify which camera you have and so which charger that you might need. All the detailed pricing will be there. It does vary based on which battery your camera takes. And if you got any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments down below.